Jordan Schultz, and then there are others out there talking about the Bears gig. But Jordan Schultz just reported on Colin Cowherd that he said what he's hearing is it's a 2-horse race as of now for the Bears gig, and it's between Mike McCarthy and Ben Johnson. What do you think?
Okay. I can point out, I've just been going back and forth every night. This is what Matthew and I do, because he comes to me at one point and he studied the last X number of hires. And he's like, Dad, every time we pick a coordinator who has no experience, it's failed. It's terrible. And I go, yeah, Matthew, that's a great point. And then he comes back and goes, well, but I don't want Mike McCarthy. I want Ben Johnson. I'm like, you're arguing against yourself. Which one do you want? This is the dilemma of trying to name a coach, to not just pick one because that person's got to want you. But so now what? Which one of those guys would you prefer? And of course, you can't come to an answer because a lot of us can't come to an answer. Mike McCarthy's done some really good work, but I've heard people in the industry on our shows, argue against Mike McCarthy and saying, no, they wouldn't like to see him. I mean, really smart people. Dominic Foxworth, I heard him say, no, that wouldn't be his choice for who the Bears should hire. And I think he's a Ben Johnson guy. I know he wasn't McCarthy, even though he praises McCarthy in terms of what he's done as a head coach. So I don't know, man. I mean, we have failed miserably hiring the coordinators, but we hired one head coach and he wasn't any good either with John Fox. So I don't know. I'm okay with either one of those guys. I'm going to be hopeful. I'm going to be hopeful with either one of them. If it was either one.
I was going to ask Mike, because one feels like the safer route. And you ask yourself, how many times are you going to touch the stove before you finally get wise? And I think that there may be that kind of mentality in their building to a certain degree. We've got to go with somebody that's got head coaching experience. But that may not be the right choice because the ceiling may be higher for somebody like Ben
right.
Johnson. So
we've seen it in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, not yet in Minnesota, but we've seen it, in some places. And I don't.
So how do you manage the risk? If they were you were advising them, how do you manage the risk in the most effective way?
You have to manage it in conjunction with him. The risk being Ben Johnson, I guess you're talking about. And you'd have to have a guy, you have to convince him. If he wasn't willing to bring his own authoritative, proven to a degree, head coach, adult in the room, if he didn't have that guy to offer up himself, then I'd have to say, we want to mitigate the risk. And it might alienate him by bringing in, Ron Rivera to be the defensive coach and be the adult in the room, a guy who has had as much success in terms of team success with the Bears as anybody. Anybody says Mike Ditka, because he was on the 85 team that won. Mm-hmm. He was defensive coordinator of the 06-07 team that got there. Yep. He's taken the team to the Super Bowl as a head coach.
Could I sell you on a Ben Johnson, Ron Rivera combo?
You could tell me on that.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, that would jump to the head. You could sell me on that combo, or you could sell me on Cliff Kingsbury, Ron Rivera combo.
And the reason I say, there is a certain amount of maturity and professionalism that has to go along with the fact that you have one guy you're giving the head coaching title to who's never done it, and you're bringing somebody in a subordinate role in some ways as a coordinator who has that experience. It takes a lot. Money's important as well.
You pay him a lot of money and you give him the assistant head coaching title.
Of course. But my point is that some guys, you can't really trust that they are there for the right reason and that they will always be searching for a way to take it. And Ron's not that kind of guy. Ron's the kind of guy that would assume that role.
It's a pro. He would never take it if he wasn't going to, if he didn't understand what the ultimate purpose was. And again, because he knows his way around the building, he knows I hate to use the word, but I'm going to the culture of the place. Who's not comfortable with Ron Rivera? So to me, it's almost like a fantasy pick for me. That's just what I want. And I don't know if anybody even said that combination of names. But I would take, if I could get Ron Rivera in that building with one of the young pups who can whisper in a quarterback's ear And I think either one of those two guys could work with Caleb. Cliff Kingsbury already has. So I that would be my dream ticket if this was an election. But that means we're not going to get it because that's what I'm dreaming of.
But let me ask you guys this question. What is protocol in an interview? Do you believe when Ron Rivera went to Hallis Hall and had his in-person interview and it's going well and he's though interviewing and really believes in himself that like this, especially the second chance, he didn't get the fair shake because he had to do too much with ownership.
Yes.
It was too poisoned and he had responsibilities away from football. So he really wants this job and now he could have the quarterback. Would Ryan Poles or Kevin Warren ever say in the interview, Ron, we really like you, and if we decide to go in a different direction, would you be open? Would you be open to being a defensive coordinator?
You got to finesse it.
Do you broach it then, or is this something you broach later?
I would wait.
I would wait. Yeah.
Out of respect to him, he's a two-time head coach in the NFL.
You're talking about a proven asset to any organization. And so, yeah, man. I mean, I say that knowing that Ron Rivera would love a chance to be the HC again. Not many people out there can say they got to a Super Bowl.
Right.
And they got to a Super Bowl as a coordinator. They got to a Super Bowl as a player.
He developed the number one overall pick in Cam Newton under his watch.
Yes, he did. And so, anyway, that's what I've been hoping for and hoping they can come to some resolution on. And I think I'm going to be hopeful almost no matter who. I don't want to hear Todd Monken's name. I don't want to hear that.
Why not?
Because if you can't figure out how to use Derrick Henry, I don't want you.
Well, let's see here in the postseason. He's only had
but if in 2 1-score games in the regular season, 2 1-score, do you realize Baltimore would have had the home field advantage in the bye? Baltimore should have won the games they lost. 2 of those games are directly attributed to not giving the ball to Derrick Henry. How hard is it to look at Derrick Henry and say, "I'm giving you the ball"? What? I don't want that. And I said in real time. When he didn't give the ball to Derrick Henry, he had like 1 carry in the fourth quarter of a 1-score game. I'd have fired him. Yeah. I would have called him in the next morning and said, listen, I'm sure you're an imaginative guy. I'm sure you deserve to be a coach somewhere, but it's just not going to be here. I don't want that guy.
Question asked, question answered.
Yeah. So not the development of Lamar and where that offense has gone and everything like that. The
development of Lamar, it's all great. It is. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm hasty. Maybe I'm too hasty. But Lamar was developing anyway. I'm not giving all that.
Yeah, he was very good. He was very,
but you're right. But there is progression under Todd Monken, to be fair.
Yes.
And maybe Monken, he figured it out now because they've given the ball. Let me just say this. If Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson tote the rock a total of about 35 times, they're going to win the game against Buffalo because you can't stop them. Because when Lamar Jackson in those run pass options, when he looks like he's going to take off and particularly when he's running outside and all of a sudden 3 people have to go with Lamar Jackson because it's going to take that minute to stop him. And then all of a sudden you're 2 people short and 1 guy is trying to tackle Derrick Henry in the open field. Are you kidding me?
I'm so excited for that game, Michael. I cannot wait for that game.
Some of this is like, I know that, football people are, they're, vested in telling you how complicated it is. And it all is very complicated because most of us can't even understand what they're doing from one play to the next. But I can understand competition. I can understand playgrounds, and I can understand pickup games, and I can understand the big dude over there, and everybody's scared to step in his path. That is when sports gets real simple. And if you can't figure that out, to give the ball to those 2 dudes, as great as Josh Allen is, Josh Allen's a moose. He is neither Lamar Jackson nor Derrick Henry with the ball in his hands.
Mike, not to pivot dramatically, but I would love to get your thoughts on any good Bob Uecker stories.
Oh, that's great call by you.
You know what? I don't have one. I'm lucky in that. I started covering baseball 43 years ago. I was like 22, 23 years old, and I was covering the Orioles for the Washington Post. And the cool thing about covering baseball for me, as much as the games, was sitting around pregame. And you get there so early, like 3 o'clock for batting practice. And you ultimately get to go upstairs and in Baltimore have crab cakes and sit around. And this is when Milwaukee was in the American League anyway. But forget just Bob Uecker, who was just one of the great storytellers of all time. But no matter who the team was, whether it was Detroit and Ernie Harwell was in town, or if it was the White Sox and Harry Carey was in town, and then, of course, it became the Cubs, the great storytellers of our time, they're gone. Vin Scully, of course, and it was, to me, I got as much fun listening to them tell their stories. And it crosses other sports. I mean, in basketball, it's Hubie Brown. When I get to a room and Hubie Brown's there, you go out after a game and Hubie's sitting there and you're in the bar area. You could be with Hubie Brown till 2 o'clock in the morning. Just sit down with Hubie Brown, shut up and listen.
It's incredible. What is Hubie?
Jack,
is Hubie 90?
So many of those guys. Hubie's got to be right at it. Yeah. I'm going to say 87, I'm guessing. But to be with those guys, to be with Johnny Red Kerr, to be at United Center or the old stadium, and you had Norm Van Leer and Johnny Red Kerr. I'm sorry. If they had said, you know what, there's no game tonight. There's no game. You guys can stay in here and listen to them. Okay, I'm good. Sign me up for that. And I've had that with Jack Ramsey and Hubie Brown and Tommy Heinsohn. I hated Tommy Heinsohn more than any athlete ever until the first night I met him. The first night I meet Tommy Heinsohn.
Did you hate him because he was a Celtics player?
I hated him because he was a Celtics player. I thought he was a homer as an announcer. I hated Tommy Heinsohn. I hated all things Heinsohn. And then I met him and had dinner with him. And I was in a group of 6 or 8 people, pregame dinner, Lakers Celtics back in the Magic Bird days. And I was sitting at dinner with Tommy Heinsohn for about 3 minutes. And I was thinking, what an idiot I've been. What a fool I've been to not understand how great Tommy Heinsohn was in everything. And then the rest of his life and a good chunk of my career, when I go to Boston, I would get a hug from Tommy Heinsohn, who maybe had just watched PTI. Maybe he was going to tell me he liked something I said. Maybe he was going to tell me I was a fool. It didn't even matter. And I would get to then go sit with Tommy Heinsohn and Cornbread Maxwell and just, it was just, to me, it's nearly as good as the event. And I got to do that with Jerry West and some other people. Jerry West is at the top of the list. But those the storytellers they are. And there are people who follow in that vein. I mean, people haven't had the chance to see it necessarily until The Last Dance. Michael Jordan is that great a storyteller. He hasn't let people see it.
Yes.
But he's that good because he doesn't want to embarrass anybody else by telling something out of school. And that's part of what you got to do, by the way. You got to tell stories out of school. One night, I'll just tell you this, Jack Ramsey, we're at dinner after a game, and Dr. Jack is there, a recent playoff game, last few years before Jack passed away. And we're talking about stories, and Jack says, okay, so I'm going to tell you about the night I traded Wilt.
And any story that starts off, I'm going to tell you about the night that I traded Wilt.
That's it. What's better than that?
Yeah.
And I would look, and young people now, they're enamored of analytics and all this. It's like, shut up. Don't care about your analytics. A dude traded Wilt and he's going to talk about it. Shut up or get out.
That's what we love about you. There's Professor Wilbon right there.